now we're going to listen to our next speaker, Filipa Peleja, who is the lead data science engineer at Lego Group. Now, Filipa has a strong passion about sharing her knowledge. So in her spare time, she's a lead instructor at an organization called Qlik. And her education was in computer science with a specialization in machine learning. And I mean, I have to admit that I'm really, really excited about listening to you, or, Filipa, then talk about the different ways that data science can assist businesses. Once again, don't forget that if you have questions, you can just write them in the chat. And with those words, I will hand over this to you, Filipa. Please take it away.
Can you see me?
No, I think that you stopped the camera sharing. And disappeared. Perfect, you're back. Okay, great.
Sorry. All right. Thank you so much, Anna, for the introduction. And thank you also for the invitation to be here with all of you. So I'm very excited to be able to share with you one of the, let's say, I'll call it one of the hot topics. Hopefully they will be insightful for you as well. As Anna shared, my name is Filipa Peleja. I'm based out of Denmark. And I'm currently working at Lego as a lead data science engineer, but I do love to share knowledge and to meet different people. And specifically, I do meet a lot of women at Qlik, where I have the opportunity to work with them as they move into the data area through a bootcamp that I collaborate in there. So anything that you'd like to know more about, feel free always to reach out to me. And for the topic of today, I would like to talk about data science as a service. Now, we could think about that within the data world. This is data science, data analytics. This has been an area that has been having a very fast moving train, if you want to see it this way. There's a lot of new technology coming in place, new models coming in place, and there's a lot of jargon as well. And one of the things that we can think about, so how are we within different organizations coping with this? Who is being impacted? Which are the roles that can contribute and leverage, this data revolution? And data as a service is something that it's not really new, but you could say that it's still not being adopted widely. And I want to tell you about what does it mean, who is it for, and what are also its challenges. And feel free to then to jump in the questions, because I'll be happy also to go through them with you. So I'm calling it this the next frontier in the analytics evolution, let's say. And why is that? So let's first have an understanding of what is data science as a service. We aim to enable data democratization. So what does it mean? Well, you could say that by now, a lot of organizations already have data democratization touch point across, which is let's empower everyone within the organization to be able to have access to data. Let's not have our data, closed in on a specific team. Let's make it available for everyone. So with that said, we managed to get the data there, but now you could also ask yourself, just having access to data, does that enable us to be able to know how to drive value out of it? And that's where data as a service comes in place, because we here are talking about how do we bring the technology that brings that data in, and that technology is easily used by anyone that has different backgrounds. So you could have, a more classic background. So you could say data science, it's data analysts who actually have a very strong background on learning how to work on top of data. But also you could be, for example, sitting on a marketing team, finance team, you also work with data. Maybe coding and those technologies are not, let's say, your cup of tea, right? Because you didn't have a strong learning on top of that, but still your function relies on data. So if you could bring that data in for you and use it with a technology that you can easily adopt, then we are empowering everyone within the organization. So that's what is behind data science as a service. So we went through the journey of the data democratization, but we also need to understand how we empower everyone to be able to leverage that. So data democratization is at its core. Now we need to understand how data science as a service works within the organization. Now, with that said, I think we can also think about why is it important? Now, there's a lot of challenges around this, and I will tackle them. But before we go into the challenges, why we want to bring this into everyone having access to data, having access to technology that helps them build this data-driven decision-making through data science solutions and so forth. So one, I would say, very obvious one is the one that I put here on the slide. That is, within, in general, most of the organizations, what you want to do is, very quickly, you want to drive value. But I will actually add another one, which is anyone that is able to be supported by data-driven knowledge, to be able to clarify things that normally, if you didn't have access to such technologies, you would have to take assumptions, you would have to maybe spend more of your time investigating because it was not easily accessible by you. So it actually impacts our motivation within your day-to-day journey. So I think this is also another very strong reason why you want to bring this to everyone. So we want also to empower you to be able to think about your day-to-day journey. So let me give you a more specific example. So imagine that you are working within the HR, so department, and you're collecting all the feedback from different teams, and you had this given to you, let's imagine hypothetically, through Excel files, and you're just using Excel for all of these things. So let's imagine that it was given to you, technology, that the feedback along the years is actually already made available for you, let's say through data democratization, and actually it's already plugged in technologies that allows you to build visuals super fast, things like Power BI, Tableau, and so forth. So when you are actually making your analysis and seeing, let's say, year over year, to be able to provide information about the satisfaction of the different teams within the organization, you are being empowered to do so. So HR, it's not really a classic, let's say, data science team, but it uses data. So this is the idea behind, for us to be more motivated and empowered when we are doing our day-to-day journey. Now, when I'm giving you these examples, you can think about something else, which is a terminology that we bring in here, and which are also, let's say, the underlying challenges that we might encounter as we move forward. So first of all, terminology. Everyone, who is everyone within our organization? We can call everyone the citizen data scientist. Okay, and I actually borrowed this diagram from a very interesting article that was talking about making data accessible to everyone. And it built these 6 pillars around citizen data scientists. I would actually add that even though you see the citizen data scientists at the core of this diagram, fact is the expert data scientists are also there. So everyone is there. Those pillars do not change. What could potentially change is maybe you could do more advanced analytics. You might use sometimes different technology and so forth. But in the end of the day, this is what you are working around. In the blue box, you are seeing this notion of the self-service. So you want to make it less of the process, less heavy, easy for us to go there, grab the data we need, and then take out all the insights that you need to do on top. You could actually be working towards more the data visualization bit, which is the green box. The example I was giving you about having different visuals around the satisfaction of the different teams across the years could be an example. This is where you want to plug in your data. But when you think about, for example, these 2 boxes, the self-service and the data visualization, this is a moment that you can think about, okay, but how do I work with data? What are the best strategies to pull data in? What are the type of techniques to be able that I don't fall into any pitfalls and so on? So that's the red box. and that's the data literacy. We need to empower our citizen data scientists with enough knowledge so they know how to work on top of data, how to think about the format of data. Is it numerical data? Is it categorical data, and so forth? So they know how to work with it, because otherwise they might struggle a bit, going back to the green box, to build the right visuals, just because the format, it's not the right one for a specific visualization. Now, those two ones on the bottom are crucial. And I would say that's also where it resides a lot of the challenges for us to empower the whole organization. So we could say the technology is already here. So it's not about that. The teams want to be empowered, right? So we want to use data. This is not something new. They have data. They're already working with data, but sometimes they feel a bit limited within the technology and what they can do for. So what are the challenges? Well, one of them is around the data security. We need to make sure that there are certain data that is more sensitive than others. There are certain data that cannot be used because of ethical reasons, because of GDPR reasons. So there's a lot of things behind that. So normally an expert data scientist would have training and refresh of that training and being up to speed on all those bits. But within the citizen data scientists, maybe not everyone actually has easy access to that, and needs to go through a journey that maybe it's not that easy, let's say. So we need to think about how do we go around that. And then there's the data governance as well, because we will have data available through the data democratization. Now, what do I have in there? How do I find the data? So you need to make data in a way that it's easy accessible, that is governed in a way that you can contribute, but also then be able to figure out where the data is as well. So there's a lot of strategies to it, but there's a lot of, at the same effort of how do we make this happen across the different business units? Because when we make this for everyone, then we actually also increase our scope. But either way, these are the pillars around our citizen data scientists. And if I want to go a bit into more detail, at the core, we have everyone using, let's say, this technology. And I'll give you a couple of examples on the bit that to drive data science solutions as a service. And if I think about the biggest differences between these two personas, some of them I already told you about. So in general, they have a different background. So the expert data scientists have a very strong focus on understanding how to solve different data-driven problems. As from the citizen data scientists, what happens is that they will have different backgrounds, but they will be also a lot more closer to the business domain. They will be very strong on the business knowledge. So this is where we could all many times say that there's a very close collaboration between these two different roles. But at the same time, what we are framing on is maybe there's a lot of things that the citizen data scientists can actually do it on their own and feel more empowered because they have the business domain knowledge. There's a couple of questions that they might want to answer quite quickly. That's the goal. Now, if we continue to compare them, what you can also say is within the expert data scientists, if you want to build more complex, advanced solutions that potentially some of these tools don't give us, this is where we can think about the expert data scientists. When we look at the citizen data scientists, they are actually just augmenting what they can do it today. And probably if they want to go to more advanced solution, that's when we bring the closer collaboration between this experts and the citizen data scientists. Now, I did tell you that I was going to talk to you a bit about the challenges, right? Because I think the motivation, it's obvious. We want to empower everyone. And we saw those pillars around what we are looking for, because data touches different things. So why do we say that there are risks and there are challenges? So I want to be a bit more specific. And here I'm actually borrowing two quotes that you see there on the top right from an article, I will almost say last year, but we're already 2024. But this was, I think, in December 2022 in the Harvard Business Review, where Reid and Tamara, they spoke about and the article was about the risks of empowering citizen data scientists. So we don't want to stop this, but we need to be aware, which are different things, right? So how do we empower, but at the same time, think in advance, how do we build this solution so everyone can leverage them confidently without being worried about the risks. So I'm going to go through two of these quotes and drill it a bit down together with you. So the first one is saying, first, automated machine learning does not solve for gaps in expertise, training, and experience, thus increasing the probability of failure. So what do they mean by this? So let me just give you a classic example. Imagine that you have a team that is working on campaigns because you want to target clients that are likely to churn, to leave your product. Now, if you do have a healthy business, means that the people who are likely to leave, to churn, are much smaller than the ones who are staying together with you. So this is known as an imbalanced problem. And in fact, where you really want to be very good at is figuring out that very underrepresented class, which are the ones who are going to churn. You want to find out who they are, but you have a lot more data to learn from on the ones who stay. So if you did have, let's say, the training, you would know how to think about the models that are less prone to have problems with imbalanced data. You would know how to potentially undersample your data. So take care of the training and test data to make, especially the training data, to make sure that your model does not focus only on the overrepresented class. So this is just an example. So the thing is, why does this increase the probability of failure? Because, well, if you do AutoML, you could potentially have the situation where the model is amazing, and it's being amazing because your majority class, they're very good figuring out who they are, and it talks for the majority. So it talks about them, but when you put it into production, you're not really necessarily being that good figuring out who's going to leave. So this is where we can think about how we can think of mitigating this. So it's kind of the closer collaboration with experts, with the scientists. It's also together with the literacy, the data literacy, the machine learning literacy as well. So it's not something that we can't work on top, but it's important, the awareness as well. Now, I'm going to look at the second sentence that we have in there that Rita and Tamara say. Artificial intelligence can go technically or functionally sideways, and non-data scientists with automated machine learning may run straight into those pitfalls. Now, there are certain things beyond, let's say, knowing the strategy within some data science problems. That is, we have situations where our data, for example, is by design biased. And intentionally, we change that as we inform our model, so we don't build biased models. So again, let me give you an example that happened a few years ago with an organization that tried to support their HR team on the hiring process for, I don't know if it was engineering roles, but it was a technical role. And they picked up all the candidates' CVs they had, and they built a model. And the idea was, when we actually have a new CV for a given position, we actually rank those CVs for the candidates who are more likely to be the ideal match for that position, because there was no time for the HR team to go through all the CVs. Now, what happened is, because of the nature of that specific role, it was imbalanced by design, because there were more men taking those degrees and applying for those jobs, because there were more men doing those studies than women. But that doesn't mean that the men were more qualified. It's just, again, we're talking about here as well imbalance, but not imbalance in the same way that we're talking about in the previous example of the churn. We're talking about, by the nature, we should actually look at those variables and treat them as protected variables, because we have bias in the data, and we don't want to make our model biased. We don't want the model to think, to learn that it should actually see that the feature gender is something that matters for that specific problem. And I'm just giving you this example. This actually had quite a negative impact on the organization who did this, on their brand, and so forth. So this is the type of thing we want to avoid. We have ethical topics for data ethics that we need to account for. We have bias on our data. So there's also regulatory risks as well. So this is what the authors here are talking about. We need to also help the citizen data scientists to be able to be aware of these things. So when they are building their solutions, they don't assume that the model is able to figure out all on its own, because it actually needs some help from our side. So these are just some examples. So the risks are here, and the impact can be quite a lot. So when we are empowering the whole organization, we need to mitigate these risks. And these are some of the ideas of how we can mitigate them. Maybe I can start with the collaboration. For sure, we have data scientists, the experts within the organization. Let's bring them together with the citizen data scientists. Let's also bring this collaboration not only on, collaborating on building solutions, but also collaborating on empowering them on certain analysis that they can do on their own, and make them more aware of how they can actually work on top of the data, and how can they properly use this data science as a service technologies for their needs. We can also build use cases, examples. We can improve their data literacy practices, best practices and guidelines. So all of those things that can help us, move along in this journey, so we empower everyone. There's a moment in time where, if you want to simplify this process, because if you look at it, it might feel a bit too heavy, but we can simplify it. We can start with certain business units and escalate from there. And you can also say that, when is the moment that this is so crucial, when it has more impact? Well, you can think about the moment of moving into production, and that could be the moment where we have a closer support with the expert teams, for example. All right, and with that said, I wanted to give you a few examples, right? So far, what I told you about is, what is data science as a service? Who is it aiming for? So it actually is aiming for experts and citizen data scientists. It's for the whole organization. And we had we touched point a bit on the challenges and how we can think about mitigating them, how we can work on them, so we can go to this, let's say, next stage of the data analytics way of working, if you want to see it this way. I also wanted to show you examples. There's a lot of technology that provides this for us, and I wanted to show you how it looks like. This example is with Power BI. So Power BI is actually being used already across different organizations. And it's mainly used, I would say, very popular for its dashboards, but it actually has a lot more in the back, which is within the lenses of data science as a service. So you can see that they have data flow. It allows you also to build a pipeline of data in, doing cleaning, doing feature engineering. So taking care of those formats. So you can see there on the right part in the Power Query, where it's visually, let's say, appealing and easy to use based on different backgrounds you might have. And this other bit, maybe some of you have not seen yet, because it's the data science as a service, how Power BI provides it. So let's imagine you have already the data sets available for you there. You can actually go there, and as you can see here on the top, you can say, I need to build a machine learning model on top. Now it actually pops up for you a screen that tells you, okay, what do you want to learn for? So in fact, here what you have is a supervised model, and you're going to tell him what you want the model to learn. So for example, if you would have a customer purchase behavior, you could say, well, what I want to learn is the sales. The sales is my target. Or you could say, well, no, I want to predict the units being sold per day for this specific product, and so forth. So it is important that even within the data set can be the same. You might have different objectives, but the only thing you need to do is to inform what you want to learn. And then the automated machine learning triggers and builds the model for you. It actually will, train different models, and it gives you all the information about its performance and so forth. And this is where the data literacy and the machine learning literacy, it's important, so you know how to navigate through that. But with that said, you can see that it's a tool that can very easily, with little training, get people across adopting and in using this. So get a bit more informed or an idea about what's going on in there very quickly. So it's very insightful. And because I didn't want to give you only one example, I want to show you as well that automated machine learning, data science as a service. It's also made available for you for different types of problems. So the previous one I showed you with Power BI was, you could say, like, say, the classic one. You are predicting customer sales, churn, all of those things. But you could have also a computer vision problem. So let's say you had images and you wanted to work on top of them, and you wanted to figure out, in this case, for example, which is the type of model of cars that are there, and you wanted to have this automated because you had a mesh of different images. So again, it makes it very easy for you to do. So the work you have is, selecting the data that is helpful for your problem. Then you just packed it as a zip folder, drag it in there, and then you do the rest of the bits exactly as you would do for other types of models. It informs you on here, for example, I know that I saw that from the previous talk, we were talking about this. It tells you all the exploratory data analysis. It looks at your different features. It gives you statistics. So it gives you also support and understanding about the data you used and how good it was or not. For example, here's telling you about quality issues that you could potentially have in your data, like duplicated images and so forth. So it's not only about building a model, it also informs you information about your descriptive statistics on top of your data, which is very helpful, again, for you to understand your data, your problem. And this is just an example. This is through another tool, as you can see. So my focus is not the tools, it's just to show you how it looks like. How do we bring data science as a service to the organization? And they are quite rich. They're getting, a lot more complete. Now the challenges still resides on which data do we have access? How do we make sure when our teams are working with this, they don't go into the pitfalls and they understand what you're looking at, right? So that's the bit and I can see that I'm running out of time. So let me just go here to the closing points. And by the way, I did put here this bits. If you want to give it a try, see on the bottom, you see these two tools that are also data science as a service. They're open source. So you can give it a try and see how it looks like and potentially how this could be helpful for you. So this is my takeaway message, which is data science, data-driven solutions empower organizations. But we need to think about as well that sometimes we see that not everyone within the organization feels empowered. So we don't really have this notion of the citizen data scientist. So how can you go about it? How can we empower them, but at the same time help them know how to go about this? So there's different things we can do. And we can also support each other in a collaborative manner. And that's it. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Filipa. And we actually have 2 questions in the chat.
All right.
So the first one is, so in your opinion, what is the biggest challenge to make data scientists, the expert data scientists and the citizen data scientists to effectively work together?
I think to work together, we are quite good on that already, because to bring this data science solutions within the organization, we work very closely with the business teams. So what I would say the challenge is when they are on their own and they have access to these tools, they know how to build the solutions and don't get misled by it. I would say that's one challenge. And the other one is there's a lot of guardrails around the data access. So even data scientist teams, they don't have access to everything. It really depends on the problem you're working on. So how do you do governance on top of the data that is made available across everyone? So I would say those are the 2 main challenges.
And the second question is, that regarding the continuous learning and collaboration tips, how might we enable, empowering everyone with data from the citizen data scientist individual perspective versus the company perspective? And this
is a question from Lamy?
Exactly.
Okay, just give me a second just to go through it regarding the continuous. Enable this from. So I don't know if I completely follow. So Lama, feel free to reach out to me later if I don't really match your question. So I'm seeing like how we enable this from a citizen scientist individual versus the company perspective. So in my view, they are interlinked. So you could say that maybe from a company perspective, we're making a huge investment to make this happen. But from the citizen scientist individual perspective, I would say everyone likes to feel more motivated in their day-to-day journey. It's exciting to be able to even try out these tools, especially when they talk to us, in the sense that my data is there, so I can visualize it faster, maybe even see things I wasn't aware before. So I think it talks to the individual on feeling more empowered and motivated. I feel like I'm echoing that a lot, but I think that's how it talks with the individual. From a company, I think that's also a very important point to bear in mind. So we want our collaborators, everyone to be happy. But also, I think from a company perspective, there's the other point, right? We want to bring value, drive value faster, be up to speed on the trends and what's going on. But yeah, if I missed your question, let me know. Reach out to me.
Thank you.